Forever yours, T. How many other things in this house aren't mine?
The photograph fell from Travis Dalton's wallet like a guilty confession, landing face up on the dusty floor of our shared tent. My wife Maya's smile beamed back at me from the glossy surface, her arm wrapped around our 15-year-old daughter Lily. Nothing unusual there, except this wasn't my wallet. I picked up the photo with steady fingers, though my pulse hammered against my temples like incoming artillery. 3 tours in the Middle East had taught me to keep my expression neutral even when the world tilted sideways. But this was a new kind of battlefield. "Hey, T-Rex!" I called to my tent mate, who was cleaning his rifle with the methodical precision that had kept us both alive for 8 months. "Interesting reading material you got here." Travis Dalton looked up from his tool, and I watched his face cycle through confusion, recognition, and finally that cocky smirk that made me want to rearrange his dental work. At 6'2", with shoulders like a linebacker, Travis had always carried himself like he owned whatever room he walked into. Apparently, that included my living room back home. "Ethan, look, man," he started, but I held up the photo between us like evidence in a court-martial. "So, my family is your pin-up now?" I asked, keeping my voice conversational. 20 years in the Army had taught me that quiet men were usually the most dangerous ones. "I mean, I'm flattered you think my wife's attractive, but carrying her picture seems a bit much, don't you think?" Travis set down his rifle and stood up slowly. The tent suddenly felt smaller, the desert heat more oppressive. Outside, I could hear the distant hum of generators and the occasional radio chatter from the command post. "She already picked the better man," he said. And there it was, the confession wrapped in an insult. "Maya's been mine for 6 months now." Lily calls me Dad when you're not around. The words hit me like a roadside bomb, all heat and ringing silence, but instead of rage, something colder settled in my chest, something calculating. Travis was expecting me to explode, to throw wild punches and make a scene that would get me sent home in disgrace. Instead, I folded the photo carefully and slipped it into my breast pocket. "Interesting," I said. "And how exactly did this arrangement come about?" "Jesus, Ethan, you're taking this better than I thought you would." Travis relaxed slightly, which was his first mistake. "Look, it just happened. You're always deployed. Maya got lonely." I moved faster than he expected, grabbing his shirt and slamming him against the tent post. The whole structure shuddered, and his eyes went wide with surprise. "Here's what's going to happen," I whispered, my face inches from his. "You're going to tell me exactly how long this has been going on, and then you're going to explain to me why I shouldn't break every bone in your worthless body." Travis tried to push me away, but 8 months of carrying extra gear through mountain passes had left me stronger than I looked. "Get off me, Cole. You want to do this here? In front of everyone?" "Actually, yes." I released him and took a step back. "Let's settle this like men." What followed wasn't pretty. Travis outweighed me by 40 pounds, but he fought angry while I fought smart. When he swung wild haymakers, I ducked under and drove body shots into his ribs. When he tried to tackle me, I sidestepped and let his momentum carry him into the tent wall. The fight lasted maybe 3 minutes, but it felt like hours. By the end, Travis was on his knees, while I stood over him with scraped knuckles and a split lip. "Here's the thing about betrayal," I said. "It's like an infection. Spreads to everything it touches." I heard footsteps outside the tent and voices calling our names. Soon this place would be crawling with MPs and officers wanting explanations. But I'd already formulated my story during those final seconds of the fight, the way you plan an extraction while under fire. "Ethan, what the heck?" Sergeant Rodriguez appeared at the tent opening, taking in the scene with practiced eyes. "Travis got word from home," I said calmly, helping my tent mate to his feet with mock concern. "Bad news about his mother. He needed to blow off some steam." Travis looked at me with confusion, then understanding. I was giving him an out, a chance to avoid a formal incident report. But his relief was premature. "I'm going to recommend Travis for some personal leave," I continued. "He's been under a lot of stress lately." 3 hours later, I watched Travis's transport helicopter disappear into the desert sky. He thought he was going home to claim his prize. He had no idea he was walking into a trap that would take months to spring. I sat alone in the tent that night, staring at the photograph of my wife and daughter. Maya's smile looked different now, calculating instead of warm. And Lily? Christ, what if she really wasn't mine? The desert was quiet except for the distant generator hum and the occasional radio check. I pulled out my satellite phone and composed a text to my wife. Missing you both. Can't wait to come home and surprise you. Her response came back within minutes. We miss you too, honey. Only 2 more weeks. I stared at those words for a long time, memorizing the casual way she lied through pixels on a screen. Then I deleted the conversation and began planning Operation Ghosted Honor, because if Travis Dalton thought he could steal my life and walk away clean, he was about to learn why they called me the Ghost. The Kansas heat hit me like a physical wall when I stepped off the transport at Fort Riley. After 8 months of Afghan mountains and desert winds, the humid Midwest air felt thick enough to swim through. I shouldered my duffel bag and started the long walk toward the civilian parking lot, where Maya would be waiting with her carefully practiced smile. She was there, all right. Standing beside our silver Honda Accord in a yellow sundress that I'd never seen before, her dark hair styled in a new cut that made her look younger. Prettier. The kind of pretty that turned heads in grocery stores and made other men wonder what she was doing with a guy like me. Ethan, she called, waving like she was genuinely happy to see me. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her. I dropped my bag and wrapped her in a hug, breathing in her familiar perfume mixed with something else. A cologne I didn't recognize. Travis's cologne, probably. The thought made my jaw clench, but I kept my expression neutral. God, I missed you, she whispered against my ear, and for a moment I almost believed her, almost forgot about the photograph currently burning a hole in my wallet. Missed you too, I said, pulling back to look at her face. She met my eyes without flinching, which told me she'd been practicing this moment. Where's Lily? Soccer practice. She wanted to come, but Coach Henderson scheduled an extra session before the tournament. Maya's explanation came out smooth and natural. No hesitation, no tells. She'd always been good at lying. I just hadn't realized how good. The drive home through Junction City's familiar streets felt surreal. Maya chattered about neighborhood gossip, Lily's grades, and her job at the medical clinic. Normal domestic life continuing its predictable rhythm while my world collapsed in slow motion. Oh, and Travis stopped by last week, she said casually as we turned onto Maple Street. He wanted to check on us, make sure we were doing okay while you were deployed. There it was. The casual mention designed to gauge my reaction. I kept my hands steady on the steering wheel and my voice level. That was nice of him. How's he doing? Good. He got back from deployment about a month ago. Seems to be adjusting well. She paused, then added, He's been a real help with some things around the house. I'll bet he has, I thought. Out loud, I said, What kind of things? Just guy stuff, you know? Fix the garbage disposal, help move some furniture. Nothing major. We pulled into our driveway, and I sat for a moment looking at the house I'd been fighting to get back to for 8 months. 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a wraparound porch. American dream territory. Now it felt like enemy ground. Inside, everything looked the same, but felt different. The family photos on the mantel, the throw pillows Maya had insisted on for the couch, even the smell of vanilla candles that she kept burning in the kitchen. But underneath it all, I sensed the presence of another man, an intruder, who'd been eating at my table and sleeping in my bed. I made your favorite, Maya said, heading toward the kitchen. Pot roast with those little potatoes you like. I followed her, noting the subtle changes. New dish towels, a different brand of coffee in the maker. Small things that individually meant nothing, but together painted a picture of a woman trying to impress someone. Smells great, I said, watching her move around the kitchen with practiced efficiency. So, tell me about Travis. You said he's been helpful. She paused in the middle of stirring something on the stove, and I caught the slight tension in her shoulders before she relaxed again. Just being a good friend. You know how it is with you guys, always looking out for each other's families. Yeah, I said. We're real tight, Travis and me. After dinner, I unpacked my duffel bag in our bedroom while Maya showered. I found what I was looking for in her jewelry box, a cheap silver bracelet that definitely wasn't there when I left. The kind of thoughtless gift a man buys when he's trying to mark his territory without spending real money. I held the bracelet up to the light, reading the inscription, Forever yours, T, subtle as a brick through a window. I put the bracelet back exactly where I found it and continued unpacking. Hidden at the bottom of my duffel, wrapped in a clean t-shirt, was a small DNA testing kit I'd ordered online before leaving Afghanistan. Tomorrow, while Maya was at work and Lily was at school, I'd collect the samples I needed. Maya emerged from the bathroom in a silk nightgown I'd never seen, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked beautiful and guilty and completely convinced she was getting away with it. "It's so good to have you home," she said, sliding into bed beside me. "Good to be home," I replied, pulling her close and breathing in the scent of her shampoo. I thought about this moment every day over there. It wasn't entirely a lie. I'd thought about coming home, just not the way she imagined. We made love that night with a desperation that felt almost real. Maya clung to me like she was trying to convince herself of something, while I memorized every detail of her deception. The way she whispered my name, the way she closed her eyes and probably thought about him. Afterward, she fell asleep with her head on my chest, and I lay there staring at the ceiling. Outside, I could hear the familiar sounds of suburban Kansas. Air conditioners humming, dogs barking in distant yards, the occasional car passing on Maple Street. This was my life, my home, my family. And I was going to take it all back, one carefully planned move at a time. Because Travis Dalton might have won the battle, but the war was just beginning. The FedEx envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning while Maya was at work and Lily was at school. I'd been waiting 3 weeks for those results, 3 weeks of playing the role of the grateful husband while planning my counterattack. I opened the envelope with steady hands, though my heart hammered like automatic tools fire. The medical terminology was dry and clinical, but the conclusion was crystal clear. The probability of paternity is 0.0%. Lily wasn't mine. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time staring at those numbers. 15 years of bedtime stories, soccer games, and parent-teacher conferences. 15 years of loving a child who belonged to another man. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Travis had done to me in that tent. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Working late tonight, don't wait up, love you." Sure, she was working late, probably having dinner with her boyfriend while I processed the DNA results that would destroy her carefully constructed lie. I folded the papers and slipped them into my shirt pocket, then walked upstairs to our bedroom. Maya's laptop was open on her vanity, password protected, but not well. She'd always used the same password for everything. Lily 2009, the year our daughter was born. Or rather, the year Maya's daughter was born. Her email history painted a picture that made my stomach turn. Messages to Travis going back 18 months, not 6 like he'd claimed. Intimate details about their relationship, complaints about my deployments, and discussions about their future together. The most recent exchange was from yesterday. Travis: "When are you going to tell him?" Maya: "Soon, after he settles back in. I don't want to blindside him." Travis: "You're too soft. Just rip the bandage off." Maya: "Easy for you to say." "You don't have to live with him." Travis: "Not for much longer." I screenshot the entire conversation and forwarded it to my personal email account, then cleared the browser history. Maya thought she was being careful, but she had no idea how thorough military intelligence training could be. That evening, I grilled burgers on the back deck while Maya and Lily sat at the patio table discussing school drama. I watched my daughter, Maya's daughter, animate about some boy in her chemistry class and felt my heart break all over again. "Dad, are you listening?" Lily asked, and I realized I'd been staring. "Sorry, kiddo. Just thinking about something from work." She rolled her eyes with the exaggerated patience of a teenager. "I was saying that Jake Morrison asked me to the spring dance." "And what did you tell Jake Morrison?" I asked, flipping a burger with more force than necessary. "That I'd think about it. He's cute, but he's also kind of dumb." "Smart girl." "Most boys are dumb at that age," Maya laughed. "Some boys are dumb at every age." I met her eyes across the table. "Yeah, some are." After dinner, while Lily was upstairs doing homework, Maya cornered me in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. "Is everything okay?" she asked. "You seem distant." "Just readjusting," I said. "It's always hard coming back from deployment." She moved closer, putting her hand on my arm. "I know it's difficult, but I'm here for you. We both are." The casual way she lied to my face was almost impressive. If I hadn't seen the emails, hadn't held that DNA report in my hands, I might have believed her concern was genuine. "I appreciate that," I said. "It means everything to know I can count on you." She smiled and kissed my cheek. Always. That night, after Maya fell asleep, I went down to my basement workshop and opened my laptop. I'd been collecting intelligence for weeks now. Travis's work schedule, his favorite bars, his routines and weaknesses. The man was predictable as sunrise, which would make destroying him that much easier. I pulled up the file I'd been building and added the DNA results to my growing arsenal. Then I opened a new document and began typing. Operation Ghosted Honor, Phase 2. The military had taught me that the best battles were won before the first shot was fired. Intelligence gathering, strategic planning, and careful execution. Travis and Maya thought they were playing house while I was overseas. They had no idea they were about to face a war they couldn't win. I worked until 3 in the morning, crafting a plan that would systematically dismantle their relationship and destroy their reputations. By the time I closed the laptop, I was smiling for the first time since coming home. Travis Dalton wanted to play soldier with my family? Fine. Let me show him what a real soldier could do. Travis's Ford F-150 sat in the Gold's Gym parking lot like a monument to masculine insecurity. Lifted suspension, chrome details, and a bumper sticker that read, "These colors don't run." The truck probably cost more than I made in 6 months, but money couldn't buy class or loyalty. I parked 3 spaces away and watched him through the gym's floor-to-ceiling windows. He was benching heavy, surrounded by his usual crowd of admirers. At 39, Travis still had the build of a college football player, all shoulders and swagger. The kind of man who dominated rooms through sheer physical presence. Too bad physical presence wouldn't save him from what was coming. I waited until he finished his workout and headed for the parking lot, gym bag slung over his shoulder and car keys in his hand. He didn't notice me until I was 10 feet away. "Well, well," he said, that familiar smirk spreading across his face. "If it isn't the ghost himself, heard you made it back in one piece." "Mostly in one piece," I replied, stopping just outside his personal space, close enough to be threatening without actually threatening. "Thanks for looking after things while I was gone." His smirk faltered slightly. "Just being a good friend. I'm sure Maya appreciated it. All those late nights helping with household repairs?" Travis's eyes narrowed, and I could see him trying to read my expression. Was I fishing or did I know something? The uncertainty was already eating at him. "Look, Ethan, save it," I interrupted. "I'm not here to have a heart-to-heart. I just wanted to thank you properly." I stepped closer and he tensed. But instead of throwing a punch, I simply patted his shoulder in a gesture that could have been friendly if you weren't looking at my eyes. "Take care of yourself, Travis. It's a dangerous world out there." I turned and walked back to my car, leaving him standing in the parking lot with a confused expression. The first seed of paranoia had been planted. Now I just needed to water it. 2 hours later, I was parked across the street from Travis's apartment complex with a clear view of his truck. I'd spent the morning at Home Depot buying supplies that would have made my old demolitions instructor proud. Nothing explosive or permanently damaging, just creative applications of everyday chemistry. I waited until dark, then made my move. 20 minutes later, I was back home having dinner with my family, while Travis discovered that someone had filled his gas tank with corn syrup and spray-painted "Home Wrecker" across his windshield in bright red letters. The phone call started around 9 o'clock. "Maya, it's Travis," I heard him say when she answered. I was pretending to read a magazine in the living room, but the kitchen was only 20 feet away. "We need to talk." "What's wrong?" Maya asked, and I could hear the concern in her voice. "Someone vandalized my truck tonight. Ethan was at the gym earlier acting weird. I think he knows." There was a long pause before Maya responded. "You're being paranoid. Ethan doesn't suspect anything." Then explain the paint job and the corn syrup in my gas tank. Corn syrup turns into glue when it heats up. Completely destroys the engine. That's not random vandalism, Maya. That's someone who knows what they're doing. I smiled and turned the page of my magazine. Travis was right to be worried. He just had no idea how much. "Maybe it was someone else from your unit," Maya suggested. "You said some of the guys didn't like you." "This is military-grade sabotage, and the timing is too convenient." Their conversation continued for another 10 minutes, with Maya trying to calm Travis down while he insisted I was on to them. By the time she hung up, she looked shaken. "Everything okay?" I asked, not looking up from my magazine. "Just work stuff. One of the doctors is having car trouble." "That's too bad. Anything serious?" "I don't think so. Just inconvenient." I nodded sympathetically and went back to reading an article about home security systems. The irony wasn't lost on me. The next morning, I drove past Travis's apartment complex on my way to meet with a divorce lawyer downtown. His truck was still in the parking lot, looking sad and defeated with its red-painted windshield and dead engine. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Kemp, listened to my story with professional detachment. I showed her the DNA results, the email screenshots, and a detailed timeline of Maya's deception. "This is all very thorough," she said, reviewing the documents. "With evidence like this, we can ensure you won't be paying alimony or child support. Your wife committed fraud by letting you believe the child was yours." "I don't want to hurt Lily," I said. "She's innocent in all this." "Of course, but legally you have no obligation to support her. The biological father would be responsible for that." I signed the retainer agreement and left Patricia's office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Phase 2 of Operation Ghosted Honor was officially underway. That afternoon, I was working in my garage when Maya came home from the clinic. She seemed distracted, checking her phone every few minutes and glancing nervously at the neighbors' houses. "Busy day?" I asked. "The usual." "Hey, did you hear anything about vandalism in the neighborhood?" "No. Why?" "Someone I know had their car vandalized last night. Pretty mean stuff." "That's terrible. They call the police?" "I think so. It's just unsettling, you know? Makes you wonder who would do something like that." I set down my wrench and walked over to her. "Are you worried about something?" She forced a smile. "No, just general safety concerns. This used to be such a quiet neighborhood." "Still is," I said, putting my arms around her waist. "I'm home now. You don't have to worry about anything." She leaned into me, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered the emails, the DNA results, and 15 years of lies. "I love you," she whispered. "I know," I replied, because she did love me, in her own selfish way. She loved the security I provided, the respectability, the steady paycheck and health insurance. She just loved Travis more, but that was about to change. The Junction City PTA meeting was held every third Thursday in the high school cafeteria, where 30-something mothers gathered to discuss fundraisers and complain about standardized testing. Maya had been treasurer for 3 years, a position that gave her social standing and access to all the best gossip. She had no idea she was about to become the gossip. I waited until the meeting was in full swing before executing Phase 3. From my car in the parking lot, I sent carefully crafted text messages to 5 key PTA members, the ones who controlled information flow in our little suburban ecosystem. The messages were identical, sent from an untraceable number I'd acquired using techniques learned in military intelligence. "Thought you should know. Maya Cole is having an affair with Travis Dalton. I have photos if you're interested. A concerned friend." I attached 2 pictures, one of Travis and Maya kissing in the parking lot behind Romano's Italian restaurant, and another of them entering a motel together. Both photos were real, taken during my surveillance operations over the past week. The response was immediate and predictable. Through the cafeteria windows, I watched as phones buzzed and screens lit up around the room. Conversations halted mid-sentence as women checked their messages, their faces cycling through shock, disgust, and excitement. Within minutes, the meeting had devolved into hushed whispers and significant glances. Maya sat at the treasurer's table, oblivious to the social mushroom cloud expanding around her. She was reviewing budget reports when Linda Hartwell, the PTA president, approached with a concerned expression. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I didn't need to. Linda's body language said everything. The way she leaned in close, the way Maya's face went pale, the way both women looked around the room at all the watching eyes. Maya's phone buzzed with the same message I'd sent to the others. I watched her read it, watched her face crumble as she realized her carefully maintained reputation was disintegrating in real time. She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair, and practically ran from the cafeteria. Several women tried to stop her, but she pushed past them and burst through the exit doors. I followed her home at a discreet distance, arriving just as she was pulling into our driveway. She sat in her car for several minutes, probably calling Travis to tell him their secret was out. When she finally came inside, her eyes were red and her hands were shaking. "How was the PTA meeting?" I asked from my recliner, not looking up from the evening news. "Fine," she said, but her voice cracked on the word. "You're home earlier than usual. We finished early tonight." I muted the television and turned to face her. "Maya, is there something you want to tell me?" She froze in the middle of taking off her jacket, and I could see the internal debate playing out across her features. Tell the truth and face the consequences, or double down on the lie and hope for the best. What do you mean? She asked finally. You seem upset. Did something happen at the meeting? No, nothing happened. I'm just tired. I studied her face for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll be down in the workshop if you need me. I spent the next 2 hours in the basement monitoring social media and watching the digital wildfire spread. The photos were already making rounds on Facebook and Instagram, shared with breathless commentary about infidelity and moral decay. By morning, Maya's phone was buzzing constantly with calls and texts. Some were from concerned friends offering support, but most were from vultures wanting details about the scandal. She stopped answering after the first dozen. I can't go to work today, she announced over breakfast, still in her pajamas at 9 o'clock. Are you sick? I asked. Just not feeling well. Lily looked up from her cereal. Mom, you look terrible. Are you okay? I'm fine, honey. Just a headache? But Maya wasn't fine. Over the next week, I watched her world collapse piece by piece. The PTA asked for her resignation via email. Her supervisor at the medical clinic called for a performance review meeting. Several of her closest friends stopped returning her calls. The social isolation was swift and brutal. Junction City was a small town where reputation mattered and adultery was still considered scandalous. Maya had gone from respected community member to social pariah in less than a week. Travis wasn't faring much better. His truck had been repaired, but someone, definitely not me, had keyed cheater into the paint on both sides. He'd started looking over his shoulder wherever he went, paranoid and jumpy. The best part was watching their relationship crumble under pressure. Stress had a way of revealing people's true characters, and both Maya and Travis were showing their worst sides. They blamed each other for the exposure, fought about what to do next, and generally made each other miserable. I knew all this because I'd bugged Travis's apartment while he was at work. A simple listening device, military grade and undetectable, placed behind his bedroom dresser. Their arguments were better than television. This is your fault, Maya had screamed during their last phone call. If you hadn't been so careless, my fault? You're the one who left your laptop open where your husband could see it. I never left my laptop open. Then how did those photos end up online? They never figured out how I'd gotten the pictures or accessed Maya's email. They were too busy turning on each other to think strategically. Phase 3 was a complete success. Maya's social circle had evaporated, her job was in jeopardy, and her relationship with Travis was self-destructing. But I wasn't finished yet. Phase 4 would be the most dangerous part of the operation. Direct confrontation carried risks, but some things required a personal touch. It was time to have a conversation with my wife's boyfriend. O'Malley's Pub sat on the outskirts of Junction City, like a beacon for broken dreams and bad decisions. It was the kind of place where divorced men went to drink away their alimony payments, and 20-somethings pretended they were tough. Travis had been spending a lot of time there lately, drowning his paranoia in whiskey and cheap beer. I found him at the far end of the bar on a Friday night, hunched over a glass of Jim Beam like it held the answers to his problems. He'd lost weight over the past 2 weeks, and his eyes had the hollow look of a man who wasn't sleeping well. The listening device in his apartment had provided excellent intelligence. Travis was convinced someone was following him, though he couldn't prove it. He'd started varying his routines, checking his rearview mirror obsessively and jumping at shadows. The psychological pressure was working exactly as intended. I ordered a beer and sat 3 stools away, close enough to be noticed, but not obviously confrontational. The bartender, a grizzled ex-Marine named Pete, nodded in recognition. Ethan Cole, right? Heard you were back from Afghanistan. That's right. Good to be home. Thank you for your service, brother. I raised my beer in acknowledgement and took a long drink. Travis had noticed me by now, his shoulders tensing as he processed my presence. He was probably wondering if this was coincidence or design. The bar was busy for a Friday night. Construction workers, off-duty soldiers from Fort Riley, and locals looking to forget their troubles. Country music played from speakers mounted in the corners, mixing with conversations and the click of pool balls from the back room. I waited 20 minutes before making my move, letting the tension build until Travis was ready to jump out of his skin. Then I picked up my beer and walked over to him. Mind if I sit? I asked, gesturing to the empty stool beside him. Travis's eyes darted around the bar, probably calculating escape routes. It's a free country. Thanks. I settled onto the stool and signaled Pete for another round. How have you been, Travis? You look like heck. I'm fine. Really? Because word around town is that you've been having some troubles lately. Car problems, relationship issues, that kind of thing. Travis turned to face me, and I could smell the whiskey on his breath. His eyes were bloodshot and angry. What do you want, Ethan? Just checking on an old friend. We served together after all. Shared that tent in the Middle East. Good times. Cut the crap. I know you know. I took a sip of beer and nodded thoughtfully. Know what? About Maya and me? I set my glass down carefully. You mean the affair? The word hung between us like a loaded tool. Travis's face flushed red, and his hands clenched into fists. It wasn't supposed to happen, he said. It just developed. Developed. Like a disease. Duck you, Ethan. You were never around. Maya was lonely. Lily needed a father figure. Lily has a father, I interrupted, though we both knew that wasn't technically true anymore. A father who's deployed 8 months out of every year. Maya needed someone who was actually there for her. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Is that what you told yourself? That you were doing me a favor by screwing my wife? Travis stood up abruptly, his bar stool scraping against the floor. Several patrons looked in our direction, sensing trouble. I don't have to listen to this, he said. Sit down, Travis. Screw you. Sit down. There was something in my voice that made him hesitate. Maybe it was the tone I'd used to give orders in combat zones, or maybe he finally recognized the danger he was in. Either way, he sat. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. You're going to finish your drink, walk out of here, and never speak to my wife again. You're going to stay away from my house, my family, and my life. Are we clear? And if I don't? I smiled, and Travis actually flinched. You really want to find out? You threatening me? I'm making you a promise. The same kind of promise I made to insurgents in the Middle East. The kind I always kept. Travis's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. Maya loves me. Maya loves security. She loves having someone to pay her bills and fix her problems. Right now, that someone is me. But if you want to test that theory, go ahead. Ask her to choose between her comfortable life and her boyfriend who can't even keep his truck running. It was a direct hit. Travis's face went pale as he realized I was the one who'd sabotaged his vehicle. The paranoia that had been eating at him for weeks suddenly had a face and a name. You son of a witch. You've been... He never finished the sentence. I moved faster than he expected, grabbing his shirt and pulling him close enough that our foreheads almost touched. Careful, I whispered. We're in a room full of witnesses and you just accused a decorated veteran of harassment. How do you think that's going to play out? Travis looked around the bar and realized I was right. Every eye in the place was on us, and the crowd was clearly on my side. A cheating boyfriend versus a soldier home from war wasn't much of a contest for public sympathy. I released him and stepped back, straightening my shirt. Like I said, finish your drink and leave. Don't make me ask again. Travis threw a 20 on the bar and headed for the door without another word. I watched him go, then turned back to Pete. Sorry about that, old army drama. Pete shrugged. Happens. Guy seemed like a douche anyway. I finished my beer and left a generous tip, then walked out to the parking lot. Travis's truck was gone, but I knew he wouldn't go far. Men like him didn't back down from confrontations. They just regrouped and came back angrier. Sure enough, his headlights appeared in my rearview mirror as I pulled onto Highway 77. He was following me, probably working up the courage for round 2. I smiled and took a detour through the residential streets of Junction City, leading him on a winding route toward the inevitable confrontation. I parked in front of a 24-hour convenience store and waited. Travis pulled up 30 seconds later, jumping out of his truck like a man possessed. You think you're so smart, he yelled, storming toward my car. Playing your little games, sneaking around like some kind of spy. I got out slowly, keeping my hands visible and my expression calm. Is there a problem, Travis? Yeah, there's a problem. You've been stalking me, vandalizing my property, ruining my life. Prove it. That stopped him cold. We both knew he couldn't prove anything. I'd been too careful, too professional in my approach. I know it was you, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. You know a lot of things that aren't true, like thinking you could steal my family and walk away clean. Travis swung at me then, a wild haymaker fueled by whiskey and frustration. I sidestepped easily and let his momentum carry him past me, then grabbed his arm and used his own force to slam him against my car. Bad idea, I said, twisting his arm behind his back. Assault on a federal employee. That's what, 5 to 10 years? Let go of me. Are we done here, or do I need to call the MPs? Travis struggled for a moment, then went limp. We're done. I released him and stepped back. He straightened his shirt and glared at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, he said. Yeah, it is. You just don't know it yet. He climbed back into his truck and drove away, tires squealing on the asphalt. I watched his taillights disappear into the night, then got back in my car and headed home. Maya was waiting up when I walked through the front door, pacing the living room in her bathrobe with her phone clutched in her hand. Where were you? She demanded. Having a beer, is that a crime? Travis called. He said you threatened him. I hung my jacket on the coat rack and turned to face my wife. Her face was flushed with anger and anxiety, and I could see the guilt eating at her from the inside. Did he now? And what did you tell him? That you wouldn't do something like that. That you're not that kind of person. What kind of person am I, Maya? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, clearly struggling with how to answer. You're a good man, a good husband and father. Father, I repeated. Interesting word choice. Something in my tone made her step back. What do you mean? I pulled the DNA test results from my pocket and held them out to her. I mean that Lily isn't my daughter. Never was. Maya's face went white as she read the paper. Her hands started shaking, and she had to sit down on the couch before her legs gave out. Ethan, I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear an explanation for 15 years of lies. It's not what you think. I didn't know. You didn't know who you were sleeping with? You didn't know who got you pregnant? Come on, Maya. You're going to have to do better than that. She started crying then, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I was scared. You were about to deploy for the first time, and I thought if you knew the truth, you'd leave me. So you let me raise another man's child. Let me love her, sacrifice for her, worry about her future, all while knowing she wasn't mine. She is yours. In every way that matters, she's your daughter. Except biologically, except legally, except honestly. Maya looked up at me with tear-streaked cheeks. What are you going to do? I've already done it. Filed for divorce this morning. The papers will be served next week. Ethan, please. We can work through this. I'll end things with Travis. We can go to counseling. Too late for that. You made your choice 18 months ago when you started sleeping with my best friend. Now you get to live with the consequences. I started toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Maya? You might want to call Travis. Ask him how his evening went. I think you'll find your boyfriend isn't quite as brave as he pretends to be. I left her crying on the couch and went upstairs to pack a bag. I'd be staying at a motel until the divorce was finalized. But that was fine. I'd slept in worse places. From the bedroom window, I could see Travis's truck parked at the end of our street. He was probably waiting to see if Maya needed comfort after our confrontation. The fool had no idea he was about to become her only source of support. Let's see how much he really loved her when she had nothing left to offer him. The divorce papers hit Maya like a sledgehammer on a Wednesday morning. I wasn't there to see her reaction. I'd moved into an extended stay America near the interstate. But Lily called me crying an hour after the process server left. Dad, what's happening? Mom won't stop crying, and there's all these legal papers on the kitchen table. My heart broke listening to her voice. Whatever else Maya had done, Lily was innocent. She didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of her mother's choices. Come meet me for lunch, I said. We need to talk. We met at a quiet diner on the other side of town, away from the gossip network that had been feeding on Maya's scandal for weeks. Lily looked older than her 15 years, wearing the weary expression of someone who'd seen too much adult drama. Are you and Mom getting divorced? She asked before I could even order coffee. Yeah, kiddo. We are. Because of the man she's been seeing. It wasn't a question. Lily was smart enough to piece together the fragments of overheard conversations and unexplained tensions. Partly, I said. It's complicated. Is it because of me? Because I'm not really your daughter? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. How did you? I heard you and Mom fighting last night. The whole neighborhood probably heard you. I reached across the table and took her hand. Lily, listen to me. What's happening between your mother and me has nothing to do with you. You are my daughter in every way that matters. Blood doesn't change 15 years of bedtime stories and soccer games and helping with homework. But legally, I'm still your father until a court says otherwise. And I'm not going anywhere. She squeezed my hand, and I saw Maya's eyes staring back at me. What's going to happen to us? You and your mom will be fine. She's got a job, and Travis seems committed to the relationship. You'll probably have to move to a smaller place, but Travis is gone, Lily interrupted. What do you mean, gone? He left yesterday, packed up his apartment, and drove away without telling Mom. She found out when his landlord called looking for him. I tried to look surprised, but inside I was smiling. Travis's disappearance wasn't unexpected. I'd been monitoring his activities and knew he'd been job hunting in other states. Cowards always ran when things got difficult. Mom's been calling him all morning, Lily continued. His phone goes straight to voicemail. I'm sorry, Lily. That must be hard for your mother. She keeps saying it's temporary, that he just needs time to think. But I heard her talking to Grandma Joanne last night. She sounded scared. Joanne. Maya's mother had always blamed me for her daughter's problems, convinced that military deployments had driven Maya into another man's arms. She was about to learn that her precious daughter was just as capable of poor choices as anyone else. What did your grandmother say? That Mom made her own bed, and now she has to lie in it. They had a big fight, and Grandma hung up on her. The isolation was complete. Maya had lost her boyfriend, her social circle, her mother's support, and soon her marriage. She was discovering what happened when you burned every bridge in your life. We finished lunch, and I drove Lily back to the house. Maya's car was in the driveway, but the curtains were drawn and the place looked deserted. Will you come in? Lily asked. Just for a few minutes? I think Mom needs to see you. Against my better judgment, I followed her inside. Maya was sitting at the kitchen table, in the same clothes she'd worn yesterday, staring at her phone like it might magically produce answers to her problems. Travis still not answering? I asked. She looked up with red-rimmed eyes. He'll call. He just needs time to process everything. Maya, he's gone. His landlord said he broke his lease and left town. You don't know that. You don't know him like I do. The delusion was almost painful to watch. Maya was clinging to the fantasy that Travis would come back and rescue her from the consequences of their choices. I know exactly who he is, I said. He's a coward who runs when things get difficult. The kind of man who seduces other men's wives but disappears when those wives become available. He loves me. He loved the idea of you, the forbidden fruit, the married woman who made him feel powerful. Now that you're just another single mother with baggage, he's lost interest. Maya's phone buzzed, and she grabbed it desperately. Her face fell when she saw it was just a spam call. The job at the clinic is gone, she said quietly. Doctor. Patterson called this morning, said my personal situation was affecting the workplace environment. I wasn't surprised. Small-town medical practices depended on reputation and trust. Maya's affair had made her radioactive in professional circles. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Watching someone's life collapse wasn't as satisfying as I'd expected. The PTA presidency is gone too, and the neighborhood book club. Sarah Henderson crossed the street yesterday to avoid talking to me. People will move on to other gossip eventually. Will they? Or will I always be the woman who cheated on her husband while he was serving overseas? It was a good question. Small towns had long memories for scandal, especially when it involved military families. Maya would carry this stain for years, maybe decades. I need money, she said suddenly. For rent, groceries, Lily's school expenses. I know we're getting divorced, but the lawyer will work out temporary support. You won't starve. And after the divorce? I looked at Lily, who was pretending not to listen while doing homework at the breakfast bar. We'll figure something out. For her sake. Maya nodded gratefully, clinging to the hope that I might be more generous than she deserved. She had no idea that my lawyer was already preparing arguments to minimize my financial obligations based on her fraud and adultery. My phone rang as I was preparing to leave. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Ethan Cole? Yeah, who's this? This is Sergeant Martinez, Junction City Police. We have a situation involving Travis Dalton. Says he knows you. I stepped outside onto the porch, away from Maya and Lily. What kind of situation? He's been arrested for public intoxication and disturbing the peace at a truck stop outside Topeka. Apparently, he's been driving around Kansas for 2 days, drinking and calling his ex-girlfriend. When she didn't answer, he started making threats. Ex-girlfriend? A Maya Cole says she's your wife. I smiled. Travis's final desperate attempt to reconnect with Maya had resulted in criminal charges. The man really was his own worst enemy. What does this have to do with me? He listed you as his emergency contact. Says you served together in this Middle East. We did, but we're not exactly friends anymore. You willing to post bail? Not a chance. Let him sit in jail until he sobers up. I hung up and went back inside. Maya was still staring at her phone, waiting for salvation that wasn't coming. That was the police, I said. Travis was arrested in Topeka, drunk and disorderly. Maya's face crumpled. Is he okay? He's fine, just stupid. They want someone to post bail, but I'm not volunteering. You could what? Drive 3 hours to bail out the man who abandoned you? Use what money exactly? The reality of her situation was finally sinking in. Travis wasn't coming back to rescue her. Her family and friends had turned their backs. Her job was gone, her reputation destroyed, and her financial future uncertain. She was completely alone. What am I going to do? She whispered. You're going to figure it out, I said. The same way people always do when their choices catch up with them. I kissed Lily goodbye and headed for the door. As I reached for the handle, Maya called my name. Ethan? Do you hate me? I turned back to look at the woman I'd loved for 17 years. She looked small and broken, nothing like the confident PTA president who'd been running 2 men simultaneously just a month ago. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you, but I don't love you anymore either. And that might be worse. I left her sitting in the ruins of her carefully constructed life and drove back to my motel room. Tomorrow I would start Phase 5 of Operation Ghosted Honor. The final phase, the one that would ensure Travis Dalton never forgot the consequences of betraying a friend. Travis returned to Junction City 3 days later, driving a different truck and wearing the hollow-eyed look of a man who'd spent 72 hours in county lockup. I knew because I'd been monitoring the police scanner and tracking his movements through social media posts from mutual acquaintances. He went straight to Maya's house. I was waiting. I'd parked across the street behind the Henderson's oak tree, with a clear view of our Maya's driveway. The divorce papers had been served, my belongings removed, and the locks changed. But some business required a personal touch. Travis's new truck, a beat-up Silverado that had seen better decades, pulled into the driveway around 6 p.m. He sat there for several minutes, probably working up the courage to face Maya after abandoning her when she needed him most. Finally, he got out and walked to the front door. Maya must have been watching through the window because she opened it before he could knock. Even from across the street, I could see the tension in their body language. Their conversation lasted maybe 10 minutes before Travis stormed back to his truck. But instead of leaving, he sat there with the engine running, probably calling Maya and demanding she come outside. She did, eventually, walking down the driveway in jeans and a sweater. Her hair was longer than when we were married, and she'd lost weight, the stress diet of betrayal and consequences. I watched them argue through binoculars I'd liberated from military surplus. Travis was gesticulating wildly, pointing at the house and then at himself. Maya kept shaking her head and backing away from him. Then he grabbed her arm. That was my cue. I crossed the street at a casual pace, hands in my jacket pockets, looking like a neighbor out for an evening walk. Travis didn't notice me until I was 10 feet away. Evening, folks. Everything okay over here? Travis spun around, his face flushed with anger and alcohol. This is none of your business, Ethan. This is between Maya and me. Actually, it became my business when you put your hands on her. I barely touched her. That's one touch too many. Maya looked between us with the expression of someone watching a car accident in slow motion. Ethan, you don't need to— Yeah, I do. I stepped closer to Travis, noting the slight sway in his posture and the whiskey smell on his breath. You've been drinking again. So what if I have? Maya ruined my life. Cost me my job, my apartment, everything. You ruined your own life when you decided to screw your best friend's wife. Travis's hands clenched into fists. You self-righteous son of a witch! You think you're so much better than me? I think I'm smart enough not to throw away 20 years of friendship for a woman who lies to everyone. Don't talk about Maya like that. Like what? Like she's a cheating wife who let me raise another man's child? Because that's exactly what she is. Travis swung at me then, a drunken haymaker that telegraphed itself from next Tuesday. I sidestepped and caught his wrist, using his momentum to spin him around and slam him face first against his truck. Bad decision, I said, twisting his arm behind his back. But you've been making a lot of those lately. Let go of me. In a minute. First, we're going to have a conversation about boundaries. I increased the pressure on his arm until he gasped. You're not welcome here anymore, Travis. Maya doesn't want to see you. Lily doesn't want to see you, and I sure as heck don't want to see you. You can't make me stay away. This is a free country. Free country, yes, but this is private property and you're trespassing. One call to the police, and you're back in jail. Only this time it won't be for public intoxication. I released him and stepped back. Travis straightened his shirt and glared at both of us. This isn't over, he said, the classic threat of men who'd already lost. Yeah, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. He climbed into his truck and started the engine, but instead of leaving, he rolled down the window. You know what the funny thing is, Ethan? Maya never loved you. Not really. She told me all about it, how bored she was, how she was just waiting for someone better to come along. The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But they also confirmed what I'd suspected for months, that Maya's betrayal ran deeper than just physical adultery. If that's true, I said, then you did me a favor. Thanks for showing me who she really was. Travis's expression faltered. That wasn't the reaction he'd been hoping for. You're both pathetic, he said, and peeled out of the driveway with a squeal of tires. Maya and I stood in the sudden silence, watching his taillights disappear down Maple Street. He's not coming back, she said finally. No, he's not. She wrapped her arms around herself against the evening chill. Thank you. For intervening, I mean. I didn't do it for you. I did it because no woman deserves to be manhandled, regardless of what she's done. We walked toward the house, but I stopped at the property line. This is as far as I go, I said. You could come in for coffee. Lily would like to see you. Lily can call me any time. But you and I don't have coffee anymore, Maya. We don't have anything anymore. Her eyes filled with tears. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed everything we had. But we shared 17 years together. That has to count for something. It counts for why I'm not pressing charges against Travis for assault. It counts for why I'll still help Lily with college expenses. But it doesn't count for forgiveness, and it sure as heck doesn't count for friendship. I turned to walk away, then stopped and faced her one last time. For what it's worth, I hope you figure out how to be happy. Just do it somewhere I don't have to watch. I crossed the street to my car where I'd left the engine running. As I drove away, I could see Maya standing in the driveway, looking smaller and more alone than I'd ever seen her. Travis Dalton was finished in Junction City. His reputation was ruined, his relationship destroyed, and his pride shattered. He'd probably leave town within the week, probably move back to whatever hole he'd crawled out of originally. Maya would rebuild her life eventually, find a new job, maybe a new man who didn't mind damaged goods, but she'd never again have the security and respect she'd thrown away for a few months of excitement. And me? I'd learned that revenge was a dish best served with patience, precision, and a complete understanding of your enemy's weaknesses. Operation Ghosted Honor was complete. 6 months later, I got a text from an unknown number. You win. Hope you're happy. I deleted the message without responding. Travis Dalton was yesterday's enemy, and I had tomorrow's mission to worry about. But I kept the DNA test results in my desk drawer, right next to my discharge papers and the photo of Lily at her high school graduation. Some victories were worth remembering.